Natalie Sideserf here of Sideserf Cake Studio, and I'm going to show you how I made a toothless cake. This was a customer order, and I have to admit that I had never seen how to train your dragon. So after doing some research on toothless, I realized that this might be the cutest character known to man, ever. It's adorable. And so now, I'm going to train you on how to make this dragon cake. Let's get started. Here we have a 12-inch round layer of chocolate cake. I place that right on a cake board. I put my parchment stencil over top and I carve around the stencil and take out that extra chunk of chocolate cake. Then I just go around the face and around the tail, and I'm just kind of rounding out the edges. Now a layer of buttercream is next, and I'm going to add another layer of cake near the shoulder area. I noticed that the dragon kind of has a pretty large shoulders, so I wanted to make sure that those were raised the highest. So as you go towards the tail, everything gets a little lower and tapers off, and as you go towards the head, it tapers off. I realized I needed a little bit more cake towards the head, so I added a bit, and then just carve out the cake. Here is a crumb coat of buttercream. This is cookies and cream, super good. But all I do is I'm taking an offset spatula, making sure the entire cake is covered in that buttercream. So here you can see the shape. The shoulders are a little higher, tail tapers, head's a little lower. So I put that in the fridge, and then I bring it back out about 20 minutes later, clean the board up a bit. And here I have some cake clay. So that is just the same stuff cake balls are made of. It is crushed up cake mixed with icing. It's great because now I can fill in areas that are a little bit too, thin or delicate to actually sculpt with cake. This is an easier option. So I can add the tip of the tail and all of the legs. Plus it tastes really good. Who doesn't like cake ball? So one of those legs is tucked under. So now that I have 3 legs and the tail, I put a layer of black modeling chocolate over top. And then I just go in and I start to work the chocolate around the cake. And then you trim away the excess chocolate. Now I'm going in and I'm not getting incredibly detailed, but I am shaping things. So I'm starting to shape the chocolate around the tail. I'm starting to shape the chocolate around its legs, and you're starting to kind of see the dragon shape coming together. Now I go in with the face, and I like to make sure that the basic shape is there. And I go in and I'm mapping out where I want the eyes and the nose. The best way to do this is to pull up some photos. Make sure you have reference photos to look at so you can see exactly what the dragon looks like. Sometimes I'll add pieces of chocolate, like the nose wasn't quite long enough. So I just took a piece of modeling chocolate, placed it right on top, and I start blending it in with the sculpting tool. The same goes for the chin. I noticed from the images that his chin was a little bit more pronounced. So I added a section of chocolate and I go in and blend it in and sculpt that. Now I'm starting to kind of map out where the eyebrows are going to be. And the section from the nose to the eyebrows I feel like is really important. Now I'm getting in with a few more details. I added some lines where the eye is going to go, and then the nostril, and finally the mouth. So for the eyebrow, we definitely needed it to be a bit bulkier. So I went in with a piece of modeling chocolate, placed it right on top, and blended it in. So now that I know where the eye is, even though I haven't gotten incredibly detailed yet, I can tell where I need more chocolate for that brow. And now I go in and smooth it out. then I want to do the same for the left eye. Map out where the eye socket is, and then add chocolate for the brow. It's funny how just if you manipulate the eyebrow section, you can make him look grumpy, you can make him look happy, you can make him look a little bit surprised. That's what I went for this, because his tongue's gonna be hanging out, so it's kind of like he's a little bit shocked, he's being playful. And you really, if you pay attention to your eyebrow, you can really convey more emotion. So now I've added what seems to be like an ear. He has these little pieces coming off. There's 3 on each side. And then he has these tiny spikes on the top of his head. And then 2 more spikes in the middle, in between what I believe to be are his ears. Now, the legs are pretty much, they're very simple. So I really don't have to do much other than, outlining them a little bit more. Same with the tail. I just added a little section because I noticed his tail is very long. So I added a little bit more chocolate to lengthen the tail a bit. And he has these kind of like fins at the end of the tail. So I added those as well. That's just with modeling chocolate. And then for the wing, this is just rolled out modeling chocolate in a triangle shape. And then I go in and I fold it a few times, and then I manipulate those folds. Then you want to blend the wing into the shoulders. I gave it a little section of modeling chocolate in the back as well, so it's kind of like where the bend of the wing would be. Now it's time to add the little scales. He doesn't have them all over necessarily. There's a few sections where they're really deep on the top of his head and on his hands and on his tail. So I went in with a straw wrapped in plastic wrap so that when I make these marks, they're a little bit softer. If I just went in with a straw, the marks would be a bit deeper and more defined. I've also done something very similar with an armadillo cake that I made, where I get more detailed about it. I explain why I'm putting the plastic wrap on, and I show you an example, so you should check that out. Here I have this little tool that I use for cakes for sucking up like liquids. So I just used that. It had a nice little round tip that was a bit smaller than the straws. So I used that to fill in the spaces in between each of those larger circles. I would say using at least 2 different size circles is best. Maybe you could even do 3. I did 2. So again, sticking around his head, his ears, his hands, and around his tail. Now for the eye, this is a very light green. I take a chunk of modeling chocolate, place it right on, and work it into the eye socket I already sculpted. And then the black pupil is just more modeling chocolate. And then I have a very, very thin amount of modeling chocolate rolled out, and that's going to be for his eyelids. He's got the bottom eyelid and the top eyelid. And then the tongue will go in. You just place it right in there. This is pink modeling chocolate. And then I just manipulate it slightly. It has a little bit of a fork, so it's a little bit of that pointed tongue. Now for the cake board, I used modeling chocolate that is colored green, and I just worked it in. I work it underneath the dragon and then across the cake board. This is going to be the grass he's laying on. It's nice to add a little color. And then you go in and add texture with a brush, a hard bristled brush. finally I'm gonna paint the eye. This is with a yellow and green mixed together. You don't want it to be too dramatic because you can see that if you look up his photo, his eyes are very slightly green and you can see a few little darker areas, but it's not super dramatic. So I just go in with a thin brush and paint in some lines. Finally, I added a little bit of green to the grass. So I'm just painting that in with food color. And I just like the way it looks when there's areas that are a little lighter and a little darker. The last thing I'm going to do is make the eyes a little shiny. So this is just piping gel, placing it right on the eyes, painting it in. You don't want to work it too much because it can mess up the paint underneath, so all those green lines we made. So you just go in with a few swipes and make sure that the entire eye is covered. And it's just a nice little bonus to make the eye shiny. And there you have it, the most adorable dragon ever, a toothless dragon cake. Well, that was cute. If you liked that video, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. You can click the notification bell below so that they let you know we put up a new video. We do it every Monday. Always cake and always adorable. Usually. Sometimes creepy. We also have some fun behind the scenes stuff going on at Patreon. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/sidesurfcakes.